you want to talk a little bit, if you will, how this program even came to be.
Now I'm on the hot seat. The big effort, this team had the 75, 76, and 77 teams had a bond. I know when Ted Marchibroda came on board, he asked me as his secretary, what have you done today to help Colt football win? Which I thought was hilarious, but I soon believed that. One of our guys, George Kunz, is eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And like many seniors or folks stuck in the senior category, he's stuck. So we're trying to promote his candidacy, showcase his accomplishments on and off the field, well, particularly on the field, and just reminisce about some those great years, 75, 76, and 77. I was a little young, so I don't have the great memories, but these guys have really good memories.
Now that you're old, you're forgetful?
And we weren't young?
Yes. I was waiting for the barbs to come out.
Didn't take long.
Well, I guess I can start with the first kind of question to all of you guys, because I've got a few notes here. And one of the things that was left to me, that from 1957 to 1977, a period of 21 years, the Baltimore Colts only had 3 losing seasons. And when you guys came in those 70s, you were transitioning out of the Unitas era and making it your own. What was that like, coming out of that era and now being sort of the team after Unitas?
Well, Unitas was the quarterback. Is that right?
He had something to do like that.
Yeah, so maybe I can speak to that. First of all, John Unitas was somebody that we all loved to watch growing up. My father was coaching for the Cleveland Browns until my senior year in high school, so I was very familiar with John's performance and play. He was a great guy, besides being a spectacular player. And you just don't replace players or teams or times like that. What you can do is add to some of those memories. I often remember somebody said, you're not as good as John Unitas. And I said, you know what? I know that. But just putting my name, Bert Jones, in the same sentence as John Unitas, whether you realize it or not, you're complimenting me. So that's, I think, the way that our team looked. I don't think that there were but just a couple of players left in 75 that played on the last Super Bowl team. Somebody, Rick Volk, right? Who else was on the team at that time?
Mike Curtis.
Mike, that's right. That may be. So we really didn't have any interaction other than just kind of passing the torch from team to team with those players. When we came in, we were the rebuilding or the cleansing of the old Colts. And I think all of us as players didn't exactly agree with that process of how that went about. But, at that time and that place, none of us had any choice. I mean, there wasn't anything such as free agency or the ability to move around. So where you were drafted and where you were traded to was where you were playing. George, what is that ND on your shirt? Is that a 4-year school now?
It's graduate. You don't get an associate's degree. It's a full bachelor's, Bert. But thank you for asking.
Yeah. But really, I think our team gelled the year George came to the team, honestly. Rookie, you and I came in 73. Lydell, you were there in 72.
Yeah.
And we were all good players or good athletes, but collectively as a group, we weren't a team. And with the gelling of our offensive line, which we attribute a great deal of that to George, we came together. We matured as players and we matured as a team. And Rookie can speak to the defensive line because they became a force to deal with. That that made our offense have the ball a whole lot more times than other teams in the league.
Just to add on, we weren't really liked much. Being the young guys coming from, and then the transition that was going on with the team. They were so used to winning, and we came in, and obviously we were not winning. And I think you're right about George. George came in with the transition, but more than that, we had older linemen who didn't lift weights, weren't physically strong. I thought they were more finesse blockers, And George came in more of the leader. He was a big guy, big tackle and everything. And certainly I think that's when things start changing for us on offense. We got physical and everything, and that just made us a better team. Again, it took a while for the fans to really like us. The first couple of years, it was tough, man. We didn't know who wanted to get introduced before the game because we all got booed.
Yeah,
it was really tough times. And
but the beauty of Baltimore, Lydell, was that like all Eastern Seaboard towns, there was a great blue collar influence to it. But what made the Colt fans good is they knew when to cheer and they did know when to boo. When we gave them things to cheer about, there was not a better group of fans in the entire league.
I totally agree.
And I can remember when you walk in the stands, you knew who was there in the stands. You knew the fans. They were there from times past, and then they got reinvigorated when we were there. Is that what you remember, Rookie?
I sure do. I remember George gave us an infusion of leadership. We were all struggling. He came in as an all-pro and really set another standard for us. We always got along. We had a great team camaraderie, but it's very difficult to understand the success of 75, 76, and 7 without talking about 74, because that was kind of the depth, the lowest that an organization can go. When Howard got fired, I think it was the second, third game of the season.
Yeah.
We ended up winning 2 games that year, and yet somehow through that developed a core and a camaraderie in that losing season that carried over to 75 once we actually started winning.
So George, you came in from Atlanta, 6 seasons in Atlanta.
6 seasons in Atlanta. What was interesting though is in '74 we played the Colts in Atlanta, and it was sort of interesting because when you look at the film that they ran, Joe Thomas kept them in a very basic offense. I think they were only strong end on the right side, and that was basically it. Very limited in terms of what they did in formation wise, but you could tell the talent was there. The individuals on that team were working well, but not necessarily all in the same direction. And that was the big difference, I think, there. When Ted got there, the talent was there. Bert was there, Lydell was there, Joe was there, Mike Barnes. I had Elmer Collette, great guard next to me. We had Raymond Chester, Robert Pratt, Kenny Mendenhall. I mean, there were just so many good players, but there had to be something that tied it all together. And whatever that may be, it occurred, but it didn't occur right away. We struggled in the first 5 games. All of a sudden, it meshed. We were 1-4, then won the next 9. Made it to the playoffs that year.
So there's sense. It just didn't make sense, did it, George?
I'm sorry?
Go from 1-4, and we go 1-4 and win the rest of our games. We didn't see that coming, did we?
No, I'll tell you what, it was a great blessing. But you know what? Every week, regardless of what happened, you could see the improvement in the individual performances, and then all of a sudden, that improvement meshed. And I think Bert and Lydell came into their own. Joe did a great job on the line. So did Mike Barnes, Freddie Cook, John Dutton. I mean, we had the pieces, and all of a sudden, you can tell when they start fitting together and we learn more about each other, then we know how to cover for our friends and how they can cover for us. And that, I think, was the big thing in turning it around.
Joe Thomas really did a pretty good job putting the team back together once he dismantled it. The problem was he stripped it down too far. I always remember me and Barnes talking about, wish we had a guy like Freddie Miller when we were young. There just weren't enough veteran leadership at that time for us to look up to and look and model after. Again, I think that's part of why George was brought in, not only for his talent, but for his leadership.
So talk a little bit about once the team sort of did come together. You guys had 3 seasons, especially, that were just unbelievable. Still talked about in Baltimore to this day. Bert, do you want to take the beginning and talk a little bit about the offense, and then we'll switch to the defense?
Well, as it relates to the offense, Ted Marchibroda came in and he had a good system. We were all kind of students at the game, and it was my 3rd year. Lydell, your 4th year. Rookie and I came in together, so it was his 3rd year. But we started out. We won the first game in Chicago, isn't that right? Then
Yeah,
we
right.
lost.
Walter
4.
Payton had 9 carries for 0 yards.
Yeah, and so, and then in the other 4 losses, we were actually competitive, is what my memory says, and it just had to have a little bit of domino effect. Lydell found his wheels. Our offensive line gelled together. How do I say? There was one great player on our offensive line, and a lot of really good players along with him. And collectively, I think that we, through those men, were as good an offensive line as there was in the league, even though they weren't, person for person statue standing up other players in the league. They weren't as good as the other ones, but collectively, they were the best. I think I attribute a lot of that to Whitey. And then, I matured some. We had a full training camp. I knew where the receivers were supposed to be, and our receivers began to gel and come together. Raymond Chester at tight end. He was pretty good for a double team too, wasn't he, George?
Oh God, yes.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's anybody better at tight end. Between that double team, I would hate to be a defensive lineman. I can still see him on roller skates going backwards down the field. Lydell, I know you can too, because you ran right behind him.
Absolutely, no question about it.
But we all kind of matured together, and the system matured within our framework of knowing what to do, and that's really what I can attribute it to. And we surprised a lot of guys. I mean, Roger Carr was a pretty good receiver, but nobody had ever even heard of Roger Carr. I mean, he came from Louis. He didn't even play college football. I mean, his grandmother made him go to Louisiana Tech, and the football, he was at an intramural track meet. I don't know if y'all knew this or not, but broad jump like 23 feet. So the track coach says, "Hey, if you broad jump for me, I'll pay for your room and board." And wow. and so the track was around the football field. He started punting the ball. The football coach saw him and said, "Wow, you can punt the ball. If you come punt with us, I'll give you full scholarship and everything." And so he's going, "This is great." Having never played a football game in his life. And then they ran wind sprints. They found out that he was unbelievably fast. And so nobody had ever heard of him. Nobody had ever seen him. In 75, he kind of matured and he caught a lot of long passes. Kevin Riley at Cincinnati never had anybody beat him on a go, and Roger did it twice in one game. So, those kind of things. Glenn Dowdy on the other side of the field, was, I think my daddy called him the best possession pass receiver he had seen. In other words, if Glenn got an angle to the inside and you got him the ball, he was going to catch it and be tough and gain yards. And so anytime I had to have something, I had a slant with Glenn Dowdy. If he could get to the inside, we could get the ball there. And everything was gelling. So everything was working together collectively. And then we kind of started believing in each other. And when it wasn't a mindset of losing, but it was a mindset of winning and winning every week. And that's what we did.
Well, in 75, you went 9 straight and you edge the Dolphins for first place. And you guys are playing the Dolphins. I'm told it was a fog game for a 90-yard drive. Is that correct?
I don't know how far, but it was certainly a fog game. And I'll never forget it because that was against Buffalo. I'd broken a bunch of ribs on my left-hand side. And by the end of the game, they were hurting a lot. They started, but we moved the ball down the field, and we were backed up. Where were we, Lydell or George? Were we on
We're on like
5,
8 or
6?
10 yard line, something like that.
We were inside our 20, way inside our 20.
Yeah.
And so we made a couple of big third down plays and moved it down and got in a position to kick a field goal and won it. It was and you couldn't even see across the field to the opponent's sideline. You know, it was when temperature and dew point came right together on the harbor, and because of it, we had a big fog, and that's where it was.
All we know is they said it was good, so that was important.
Well, and Joe, the defense held Miami's quarterback to 8 completions for that. Talk a little bit about the defense and as it starts coming together on the other side.
Yeah, well, Mike Barnes and I came in 73, and then John Dutton and Freddie Cook came in 74, and we gelled in 75, right around the time the offense gelled. They have a great defense, really helps to have a great offense, putting up points. Greasy was behind most of the time, and when we could just tee off on a quarterback, we were pretty darn good. But you know, we had Mike Curtis, and then Jim Chiansky came along, and another veteran that gave us a great amount of character. And defensively, yeah, we were pretty tough. But again, when you got the kind of offense that we had, you're never out of the game between, you know, Lydell and Bert. Gives you a great deal of confidence, and we grew in our confidence, and 3 great seasons.
Well, and you guys, George, you and Lydell and John Dutton made the Pro Bowl that year. So that's got to be one hell of a turnaround from how you started the previous season and to now this point when the team's coming together.
Well, we were able to, let me tell you, the defensive line had a lot to do with the way everybody got better that year. When you take a look at Joe and Mike Barnes, they had the ability to keep pressure on the guards that they were playing against in the center, which meant that those guards didn't hold them at the line of scrimmage. That allowed Freddie and John to put pressure on the outside so that the quarterback couldn't step up. You had to keep stepping back. And when you step back, those tackles have a lot of work to try to keep those guys off the quarterback. So when you get pressure up the middle, pressure coming at the sides, there's not a lot of quarterback can do. And that was really noticeable. I was watching these guys on the sideline, and that pressure was important because it allowed Curtis and Chiansky to do what they needed to do. Chiansky was a great middle linebacker when Mike got hurt, and he stepped in there and did just a great job. But you got to give the defensive line credit because, especially the 2 tackles, because they didn't allow that quarterback to step up. And when that happens, that pressure from the outside gets really ominous, and that's when a quarterback starts looking to get rid of the ball, not to get it out there safely, but to get rid of it so he doesn't get hurt.
George, I guess that's how they got the name, the Sack Pack.
That's right.
They got a nickname.
Freddie Cook had 16.5 sacks that year, didn't make it.
I didn't realize that. Man.
16.5 sacks, a couple fumbles, and did not make the Pro Bowl.
They did not make the Pro Bowl. That's right.
Wow.
Well, we're being joined now by Mike Gibbons. I see, Mike, you have finally got your technical pieces corrected, and we are just wrapping up the 1975 season and heading into the 76 season. And I'm going to defer to you.
All right.
Because you were at a lot of those games.
Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I was at the. How you doing, guys? Haven't
Good,
seen
good.
you in a while, but thank you for being with us this evening. And so we're into 1976, and something. So you guys are the reigning AFC East champions, and 76. There's a power struggle between Marcia Broda and Irsay and Thomas. And there was a lot of the coaches were threatening to resign. And Bert, you stood up for your coach. Talk to us about that.
Yes, I think that was the only Wildcat labor strike we've ever had in the NFL. I mean, we literally did just that, and of course, I felt like I was bulletproof at the time, and so I felt like it would be okay for me to kind of speak the piece of the whole team. But I'll never forget the fact. I mean, you know, the truth of the matter is, our management, i.e., Joe Thomas, was excellent in getting talent to the field. But the one shortcoming Joe had, or a shortcoming Joe had, was he didn't attribute much of the success to the coaches. And all you have to do is look at the 2-12 season the year before and the 10-4 season after that in 75, and what is the fundamental difference? The coaching. And we all gelled together, adopted Coach Marchibroda's staff. I mean, it was kind of crazy. I talked to the mayor. I talked to Pete Rozelle. I said, Pete, you need to get down here and get this settled. I said, we're not playing on Sunday if we don't have our coach back. And he goes, Bert, y'all just can't do this. I said, well, I mean, that's where we are right now. And so needless to say, it all came back together. But it was a bold move for our whole offensive, our whole team to take that position. And I was just fortunate to be the one that was more bulletproof than anybody else that could stand up and tell them how the rest of the team was feeling along with myself.
What a story.
I seem to remember one line from that. Don't get in a pissing match with a skunk.
Oh, yeah. My mother reminds me of that to this day. So
Great line.
I can't repeat that.
Well, you know, so Ted did come back. You know,
Yes, Ted was reinstated and came back. Yeah. And I can't tell you how nervous I was for that opening week against New England, because there was some serious sphincter pucker going on, but we came out with a good victory, and I felt a whole lot better after that game.
So you guys went 11-3 that year, your second consecutive Eastern Crown, and six of you made it to the Pro Bowl. And George, you were a second team All Pro. So it was kind of a great year, but it leads to that playoff game against Pittsburgh, and they blow us out. My father and I are at that game, and thank God most people left early because things were not going our way. And then an airplane flies over Memorial Stadium, and my father and I are walking out under the inscription, and my old man, who used to be a pilot in World War II, he goes, that shouldn't be happening. that guy should not be coming over there. And Don Kroner crashes into the closed end of the upper deck. What were your reactions to that? What do you remember about that scene? Because it's pretty famous.
Well, the first thing I remember is I thank God nobody was hurt. Secondly, I was glad that people remember the plane more than they remember the game. We didn't, Pittsburgh had a great ball club. There's no doubt about it. We just couldn't at that time keep up with them. Speaking as the offensive line, I had L3 Greenwood, Joe Green, who I've known forever, was playing inside on Elmer. They had a good defensive front. We just weren't able to jackhammer the linebacker. I mean, we just weren't able to do what we thought we could, and that's to their credit. They deserve to move on, and from that point, we didn't have the ability to keep up with them at that game, and the score indicates exactly what that difference was.
I remember our whole game plan was to shut down Franco because they had run the ball that year, and I think the third play of the game, Bradshaw hit about an 80-yarder to Frank Lewis, and that just set the tempo for the rest of the game.
Yeah, we came right back to score, and as Bert said, we just couldn't keep, or George said, we just couldn't keep up. But we came right back and scored after the Frank Lewis touchdown.
So
we're talking about that airplane. If y'all remember, on Saturday, the day before the game, the guy came flying around, and I'm a pilot, so I was seriously paying attention to him. And you remember he dropped blue and white toilet paper, and it came down. Didn't Bad Boy catch a roll of it that was coming out of the plane? And so the guy met me, because there had been an article written in a flying magazine that I flew, and he came out, and I saw him in the parking lot after that Saturday practice. And I said, you just can't do that. He said, I think I can land. I said, the only way you can land an airplane would be you bring it in here and you pull it a full slip, drop it, and do it like that. You'd have to have a tail dragger, but you'd never get it out. And so that literally is how he did it. He came in and tried to slip, and then when he realized he couldn't do it, he raised up and did kind of a wing over stall, and that's why he didn't crash. He just nestled it into the seats. And so, air traffic, the FAA came to me after the game, and I told them all about that. So I can't remember what all kind of tickets he got, but it was pre-planned, and it was not a good idea.
Oh,
And
so that propels you guys from that experience, and you go into 1977, and you start off 9-1. Your save fires Joe Thomas, and because there was still friction going on, right, between Marchibroda and the GM, and brings in Dick Szymanski, who is an old Colt, and so he takes over that role. But then you guys start off real well, and you beat Pittsburgh, as part of that 9-1 start. Then you lose 3 games toward the end of the year. You win the final, and you get yourself back into the playoffs for one of the great playoff games in the history of the NFL. Christmas Eve, 1977, Kenny Stabler and Oakland come in, and it's a double overtime game. Talk to us about what you remember of that incredible game.
I remember one play. Go ahead, Lydell.
Well, I remember very distinctly, Bert, and I hope you remember this here. We were, I thought, moving the ball pretty well. And I thought the one move that we made is, I think Ted called you and I together and everything. Say, hey, guys, we're just going to run the ball. We're going to run the ball. And I thought what we had working for us was quite good, because we were doing a lot of play action on first down and second down, and keeping those guys off balance. And once we got the lead, we just sat on the ball, and I thought that was a wrong move for us to do. Mm-hmm. And obviously, they caught up with us. But it was a tough game. It was a great game to be part of, but obviously we wish we had come out on the winning end of the game. But that was my remembrance of the game. I thought we just strategically made the wrong move when we just said we're going to sit on the ball and run it on first, second down, and perhaps throw it on third down and then just punt. And obviously, Oakland caught up with us.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
Anybody
and I
else?
don't disagree with that.
Anything?
I remember one play, and I still have dreams about it. Raymond Chester was running a corner pattern back to the Colts bench, and I was getting ready. He made one extra fake move, and I overthrew him about this far. And had I waited and saw exactly what he was going to do on the route, it would have been a game changer. We would have won. So you have those nightmares.
So the Bert Jones era, which I think a lot of the fans talk about, concluded, as Sean mentioned earlier, 21 years when the Baltimore Colts had a record of 180 wins, 101 losses, and 5 ties. The best record over those 21 years from 1957 through 1977. Best record in the NFL, better than anybody. Cleveland
didn't know that.
Yeah, they were the runner up to you guys by about 8 or 9 games, but it was a remarkable stretch. But then in 1978, and you guys are still cooking, and then Bert goes down in the preseason, and I remember that when you came back, Bert, against Washington, I think, is that right, in that big rain game, and
Well,
we were all so hopeful, but it didn't work
yeah,
out.
and then I blew it out again and didn't play
Yep.
again.
Yep.
I was stupid. I figured they paid me to play and I was going to play. The mindset back then, and it's not a good mindset, was I wanted to be on the field no matter what the situation was, what my body was telling me or whatever. And hindsight's 2020, but that's pretty stupid. But I was playing with a full AC separation, and it was not a good thing to do. And I just continually kept hurting it, and because of it, took me a year and a half to get over. I did, but had I just stayed out for that whole one season, we would have had a different outcome.
So, listen, tonight we're reliving some of the highlights of your great careers as Baltimore Colts. But we're also looking at George, a guy who all the way through his career, for his time at Notre Dame under Eric Precision, and the 66 season, when you and Michigan State tied, but were ranked tied not for number one at the end of the year, even though neither of you went to a bowl game. And then you do your pro career, 3 All-Pro mentions, 8 Pro Bowls in 11 years. And it's quite a career that you have had. And you would think with that kind of a resume that the Hall of Fame might give you a little bit of recognition there. And we certainly, as Colt fans and as George Kunz fans, hope that someday can happen for you, because you certainly are deserving. But anyway, good luck with that. And I think it's time for us, Sean, to turn the program over to the audience for some Q&A. So we're doing real good with time. We've got about 20 minutes here, if you guys can hang with us. Sean, you got any questions out there?
So as we indicated, if you want to ask a question, please turn your cameras on. Bob Colbert, I see you first popping up. What is your question?
I'm sorry, I don't have a question, but I have some good memories of working with those guys. Joe's
Bobby.
19 back when I was coaching, and did a great job. Bert, you sent me a nice 75th birthday greeting. And Lydell, I helped your career in 1969 when you were a sophomore, because I was playing at Maryland and you guys were undefeated and you ran out.
well, let me thank you.
And Joe, I heard you're not still coaching, are you, Joe?
No.
You gave one of the great halftime speeches I've ever heard. We were playing in Pittsburgh, 78 or 79, freezing cold, and the Steelers were beating us pretty bad. And your halftime speech to the guys, offense, stay in bonds and let's get the hell out of here.
Don't tell people that story.
Oh, that's a great story.
Oh, man. I'd like to go back to the fact, George, you played in 8 Pro Bowls, and in 11 years. I mean, that's almost a record in its own right. And the only reason that you haven't made it to the Hall of Fame is probably because that one pass to Raymond Chester that I missed, because we didn't get to the Super Bowl. There's so much emphasis, it seems, in today's game, getting into the Hall of Fame. Most of them are Super Bowl, have played in the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, we did not. And George, I'm sorry for that, but you, more than anybody that I ever played with, is deserving of getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I just don't understand it.
Well, and I appreciate that, Bert. But let me tell you that the memories I have, I look at the time in Atlanta and the time in Baltimore, and I just thank God and I thank you guys for the memories that I have playing for Ted and playing with you. It was just a couple of instances, Bert. I remember we were playing against Cincinnati, and it was 3rd and long. I was pass setting on the defensive end, and I was close enough to you to hear the ball leave your hand. And when it left your hand, you hit Roger Carr in a 50-yard touchdown pass down the left sideline. He didn't have to break stride. And that was I'll never forget that. It's the sensation of hearing and then seeing the result of what you hear was phenomenal. And I realized what a great quarterback you were. With Lydell had the great ability to move sideways, laterally.
He was a worm. He was a worm. He could just worm around. And I don't know how he got in and out of the line, but he was always popping out on the other side.
Exactly. And he had that great ability. Joe had the great ability of being able to set his feet straight and put pressure in the middle. And although the sack pack had a lot of sacks, he gave credit to the defensive ends because he would not allow those quarterbacks to step up. As a result, the ends had a field day because all they had to do was beat the shoulder of the tackle. So when you look at the guys, those are the memories I have. Those are the great smiling memories I have of the guys we're talking with right now. And I can't thank you guys enough for that.
Well, George, I think we'll do everything we can to assure that you get into the Hall of Fame. You know, as Bert say, too often it's all about who wins Super Bowls. But I know without you, man, I wouldn't have got all the yards I got running on that right side. And we certainly ran that quite a bit. So anything that we can do to help, man, we're here for you. No question about it.
Well, thank you.
And George, when you get in the Hall of Fame, I'll never forget this opening, which was the first time I was ever really around you in a speaking environment. There was a Baltimore club meeting, and we all marched from training camp down there. And they asked George to speak, and I'm going, okay, as unaccustomed to public speaking as I am, it behooves me to be here today to speak both objectively and subjectively about the game called football. And I'm going, wait a minute, this guy's playing with us. So George, that's your opening line.
Was smarter.
Oh yeah, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, Bert, I'd be happy to use it.
You remember that, rookie?
That I don't. I remember that with that clock.
Oh, digging for the gold.
Digging for the gold. I'll tell you where the gold is. I tell you, we missed talking about 75 to 77 without talking about the city of Baltimore and the fans they were.
Oh, unbelievable.
What I remember about the Oakland game was the fans, man. They were just incredible. And what a pleasure it was to play in that city.
You know, once again, I grew up in professional football, having my father played for 10 years for the Browns. And then when I was 11 years old, he went into coaching until my senior year in high school. So there were only 4 years that I can remember in my life when I wasn't involved in professional football until I broke my neck in '82. And I don't care where we were, who we played, where we were. There wasn't a better fan group than what we had in Baltimore. I mean, it was just over the top. They knew when to cheer and they knew when to tell you they were unhappy. And you know, it was just a wonderful group. You remember the wheel?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Big wheel and the smoke.
Pope Corrals, Loudy Loudenslager.
Oh, Loudy.
Corrals was a tremendous asset to our team. Oh,
You
Doug
know,
Nutt
I still talk to some friends that were members of the Colt Corral, and they're still gracious enough to send some Facebook emails just to say hi. So the fans in Baltimore still are great.
Yeah, and the marching band. I mean, I think we had the only marching band in the NFL. It was they continued on even when we didn't have a team.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
All right, so moving on to the next question. Randy, I see you have your camera on. Do you have a question? Randy Gardner?
Yeah, you just talked about Hurst Loudenslager, Loudy, what he meant to the team at the time. And I was also fortunate enough to be a freelance reporter for AP Radio covering you guys, and it was so much fun doing, you know, and you know, you guys were great, gave great quotes after the game. We could always rely on something. So I just thank you guys for that.
Well, thank you. Of course, I don't think there's ever been a greater fan in the world for anyone other than Loudy. I mean, he was just top shelf. Every plane trip, he was there to see us off. Every plane trip, he was there to see us back. I mean,
Yep.
he was just a beautiful person.
We have an interesting situation at the museum now. I mean, the Colts have been gone for 40 years and a couple of months, right?
Wow.
And, but we still, as the Baltimore Colts archives, people are coming to us not every week, but certainly every month, because the fan base is getting older, like we're all getting older, and they're bringing their things, their Colt memorabilia to us. Last week, a guy brought in a Roger Carr jersey, and you know, I mean, it's wonderful stuff, because the love affair continues. But you know, the Colt fans want their memories preserved, and that's our job to help keep that legacy alive. So, you got any more questions out there, Sean?
Rob Betts. Rob, you're next.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah.
I see one of our teammates, the great teammate Doug Nettles, is on.
Dougie's on.
Hey,
I just saw his name pop up.
oh, did you? Okay, good.
Doug, are you there?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
What's
Talk to
happening,
us.
Doug?
What's up, guys? Hey,
We're
Doug.
good, man.
I can't get my camera to work, so you guys can't see me, but I guess you can hear me.
I think you're in California now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm San Diego.
Yeah. I was listening to you guys talk about the planes. I remember that. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you guys remember that when we were in Buffalo that year and the plane coming to get us crashed. You guys remember that?
Somebody left their mic on.
I didn't catch that question.
I was talking about the plane that crashed when we were in Buffalo that year.
I froze.
Yeah, that was a terrible thing.
Yeah, I remember Lydell was going to take the train home, and Joe threatened to find everybody if they didn't get on the plane. But I was getting on the train with Lydell.
Oh, that was tough. That was a tough week. Yeah. I think I said to the guys that work in the media, you know, they said, well, just think, if we go down, if this plane goes down, we'll get a new team. And I said, yeah, we'll get some new writers too. I remember that so well, man. Yeah. That's how bad it had gotten.
Yeah.
All right, Rob, you have a question?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Got you.
Hey guys, I'm so thankful to Mike and Sean for putting this together and for you guys to take your time this evening. 75 to 77, I was a young man just passionately getting into sports. And so that time frame for me, I was 10 to 12 years old. And I lived and breathed the Baltimore Colts. Bert, you were my Johnny U, and still are.
Well, thank you.
But I feel terrible for you guys because I feel like since the team moved, you don't get your just due. You don't get. The museum's had some nice events where we've gotten together over the years out at Martin's and had some fun. But I feel like you guys really haven't gotten your just due. But the people here in Baltimore, we still remember you. We still love you. I actually have I don't know if you could see it, 77 media guide here.
Wow.
And my whole basement is Baltimore Colts. So my question is, next year, if my math's correct, will be 50 years since that 75 team.
Wow.
Are there any thoughts, Mike and Sean and you guys, to having some sort of 50th anniversary commemoration?
It's a great idea, and I tell you, the museum, by the way, fellows, this is our 50th anniversary. We opened in July of 1974, so we're at our 50 now. Next year, you're right, is 50th for the 75 team. And you mentioned Martin's West. I know, I hope you guys may remember, but we did an event for these guys, and a ton of them came in, including Marcia Broda. We had about 1,000 people at Martin's West for that event, and there's a lot of love. You're right, still for this ball club, and it's a great
idea. A lot
idea.
of love from the ball club for Baltimore too.
Yeah, there's no question. And so we should look into that, see if we can get the guys back together, because
Maureen, you have a new job.
Important year. Yeah, get her going. Come on, Bo. Come on.
Get me going. Do you not get emails every day?
You're on, Bo.
Can I just mention one?
I'm sorry.
All right, I'm on it. Mike, I just wanted to mention one thing. We talked a lot about the offense in the 75, 76, and 77. Joe Ehrmann and the front four on defense, the Looney Tunes, we call them, or they called themselves, they did tremendous work in the Halloween parties, the 50s parties, and building that camaraderie. And I hope no one has photos of certain costumes, but I'll leave it at that.
You know what, guys? You know what I really miss, and I'm sure you guys do too. Every year, these teams get together and they have reunions, team reunions. Obviously, you know, that's something that we never ever get together and do. We had that one event that we had out in Indianapolis, and I thought Jimmy Irsay did a fantastic job putting that together. But I do miss every year, man. It's kind of and probably get a little sad because you watch all these teams on TV have their reunions. Yeah, here we are, man. We don't have anything to cling to, and it would be nice if we do get together for our 50th, for the 75 team. You know, hopefully we can put something together like that.
We'll get on it. I mean, it's a great idea, and it needs to happen. And I think that the city would embrace it, and so we'll get cracking on it and make that happen. Okay.
Hey, Mike, this is John Lopez calling. I just want to.
Hey, Lope.
I want to take a second to say how much I really appreciate the fact that all you guys are on this call tonight, and it's good to see that everybody's in good health. I want to thank Maureen. Mo and I talk a lot over the last several years. She's your champion. She does a hell of a job at taking care of you guys in a lot of little different ways that not a lot of people know about. She spent an awful lot of time taking care of Freddie Cook and working with a lot of the issues with concussion problems. And I'm glad to see you guys and that you're all in good health. And I just wanted to say it was a great opportunity for me to come in and work and be a part of the Colts, and especially working with Eddie Block and Mike O'Shea. And I remember, Bert, when after Ted got fired, Mike McCormick came in, and Mike wouldn't talk to me for about 4 weeks after he got hired. And I finally corralled him one day in the hallway during the off season. I said, you know, I need to ask you a question. Do you want me to stay here or get the hell out of here? And he said, well, I just want to know one thing. He said, what do we need to do to keep Bert healthy? And I said, well, number one, you need to get George Kunz out of retirement. Number two, you need to talk David Taylor out of retirement. Either that or you're going to line up at right tackle and I'll line up at left tackle and keep Bert healthy. We're having problems, buddy. Nothing against Wade, but we had some problems trying to keep old number 7 healthy. But rookie, it's good to see you, Lydell, George, Needles.
Yay.
I appreciate all you guys, and John Kasich. For a lot of these guys don't realize that John Kasich was the assistant athletic trainer as a senior in college in 1979, because Timmy Kirshner had resigned during the middle of training camp, and Sissy, I need to be careful what I say, but Sissy wouldn't let me hire anybody. And John Kasich worked all year long. And at the end of the season, he never got paid. He lived at home with mom and dad because his dad was a physician in Baltimore. And John worked all year long for no money. He had meal money. That's what he lived on. And at the end of the year, Eddie Rosenblum wrote him a check for $500 and said, "Thank you very much." And Mike Chernoff wanted to fire Eddie Rosenblum because he wrote him a check for $500. I went to Ernie and Sizzy about that. Sizzy blew it off. Ernie was the only one who protected Eddie.
I can't believe we overpaid him that much.
Well,
let me tell you what, John Kasich is the associate athletic director for sports medicine.
I'm aware of what he's
South
doing
Carolina. Go Gamecocks.
He did a great job with us, and he's doing a better job right now.
And I think their women's basketball team did a pretty good job against a team down in Louisiana, Bert.
Oh, be careful now. Be careful. That's cold-blooded.
uh-oh.
Yeah, they spanked us.
They did. Anyway,
Yeah,
guys,
John.
Thank you, John. It's good to see
Hey,
you.
Johnny.
I'm glad
King
you guys
George.
are healthy.
You got to give us
Well,
a
Mike-
mission. How do we help?
Well, I think you guys have done a lot right now, and I appreciate that very much. What's the best part about playing football is, I think, the memories you have and the people you meet. And I can't imagine anybody having better memories and meeting better people than I did. And I thank you guys all for that.
Wow.
Appreciate it. I'm sure we all
right,
feel the
Michael,
same, George.
that was our
Great memories.
Michael.
Sean?
That was our last question.
Okay.
So we want to wrap up.
All righty. Hey, Joe, something popped up on the screen. They want to know how you got your nickname Rookie.
When I was a kid, I went up to the park. The first time I went up to the park to play with the big boys, somebody said, "I'll take the Rookie." Stuck from then on. All through high school, I was called Rookie. Still
That's
called Rookie by all my friends, as you hear tonight. Yeah.
We hearing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it's great seeing all your faces and hearing the stories. And we'll get together with Mo and see what we can come up with for next year and pick a date that makes sense to everybody and try and get this group back together again. I think it would be great for the city of Baltimore, great for the museum, and hopefully great for the team to bring them all back.
Well, you know, Baltimore's got a pretty good football team right now.
Not bad. But
I'm
they've got
talking about they've got some special players, and they've got one special quarterback.
He
can
is
do things with the football that just are not supposed to happen.
it is remarkable to watch. You know, some people have said you were the best pure passer in the history of the game, and I wouldn't contest that. But Lamar, wow, he is.
This man can do it all. He can do it all.
So,
but there's a kid coming from LSU that's going to be right down the road. That's not a bad player too.
He came to the Babe Ruth Museum. He got the Johnny Unitas Golden.
Oh, that's
Ornament.
right.
We had the
Unitas
Unitas
come up
collection.
for that.
So yeah, he came over and he was a great kid. And and this was the night before the Heisman. And I said to him, "You going to win the Heisman?" He goes, "Oh yeah." So, all right. But you know, I like confidence, and he's a great player, and let's see how he does. He'll be right down the street from us. So
that's right. And George, we like your old coach of Notre Dame and LSU. Thank you. I was with Brian 2 weeks ago.
Well, tell him I said hi.
I'll do that.
They're still crying about us leaving, but that's all right. You guys got a good guy.
And you know, your coach was my father's roommate and teammate with the Cleveland Browns.
Wow.
Which
Ara
coach?
Parsegian.
Oh, really?
Ara.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, and when we played Notre Dame, I make it quick. You know, Mom and Daddy used all the tickets at LSU, but I said, I can't get you tickets to Notre Dame. I said, there's no problem. Daddy said, we'll see you up there. We'll watch the game. So my sophomore year, I go up there, I go out to warm up, and guess where he got the tickets from?
You got a Vera?
Yeah, and guess where he was? Right behind their bench, standing
that's
up
good.
behind their bench, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm warming up, and my daddy's on the Notre Dame bench. That was not a good day.
Well, think of the great seat he had, though. I mean, let's
Oh,
look
I
at
know.
that.
Well, he went back into the stands before the game started. I will have to admit.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'll tell you what,
So-
it was an honor having him down there in the field, if that was the case. Believe me.
Well, you've known my dad a long time, George. He's a good guy. Still is at 99 and a half. That's hard to believe.
Oh, man.
Well, gang, I don't know how to tell you all this, but I am at Chicago O'Hare Airport, and I've got to get on the airplane in 30 minutes. Y'all have a wonderful day. George, I appreciate it. And I apologize for missing Raymond Chester on that corner pass, because that would have put us in the Super Bowl, and all this would have been history.
Well, you know what? This is still, I still have some great memories from Baltimore, all you guys included in them. So
We appreciate you, George. Whatever we can do to help, man, let us know.
All right,
Y'all have a great day. I'm on the
Thanks,
sign off.
Bert.
thanks,
Joe.
thanks
Bo.
to all of you for tuning in this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and stay tuned as we'll try and bring this team back together again next year, and celebrate the great legacy of our Baltimore Colts. Thanks, everybody.
Put Mo to work.
All righty.
I'll call you tomorrow.
Take care, everybody. Always a pleasure.
All right.
You guys.
You guys.